Oh, I looked at the store, and it was a store called, I don't know if it's still there, I think this was 17th Street between 6th and 7th, or Broadway and 6th or something, and the store is called The Magical Child. Or maybe it was 19th Street, I can't remember. But anyway, the store was called The Magical Child, and they dealt in occult products and the like, you know, tarot cards and stuff. And I was thinking, like, why do I need to go into this place, you know, because I have my my way of doing those things, I guess, you know. But I said, okay, it does make sense, so because maybe there's something in there I need. And I went in and I tested, is there anything I need in here? And there was one thing in the entire store. Now, this was a big store, by the way. And I was thinking, how do I find this one needle in the haystack? And what they had like a huge part of it was dedicated to occult books. And so I said, because I tested, it was a book. And I went, you know, I don't want to read a book. Basically, that's what I said. So anyway, what I did is I tested this wall, no, this rack, and then I tested the sections. And then I tested the book. And I looked at this book, and the book was $40. And I said, no, I don't want. But you know what? The funny thing, I happened to have $40 on me. That was kind of weird, wasn't it? Because generally when I go out running, I don't take money. But I actually had, like, you know, a bunch of money in my pocket. God knows why. I can't remember anymore what that money was doing there. But so I said, okay, first I'm going to, and it was a 2-volume set. It was the Li Chi, which is it's a book of Confucius, stories about Confucius talking about governing. So I said, okay, let me let me test which volume it's in, and I tested which volume. And then I opened it and I tested, you know, the page, and I read something, and I said, this is pretty interesting, actually. I can't remember what it was I read anymore. Anyway, I tested to buy the book. I tested that I needed to buy the book, and I needed to read or at least look through both volumes. And I still have the book, you know, and I've done that many times. But what it turned out to be was, as I asked more questions about it, I discovered that what we're doing, is going to be enormous. And that I needed to learn leadership to do it, you know, to do my part in it. And years later, as I suppose my study of leadership had ramped down, I got a call from Keely recommending a book on leadership, and we started to talk about it. And Keely said, you know, she said, you should do a course on leadership. You should create a course for yourself. And a year or so later, when I read Rudy Giuliani's book about his leading, you know, his being mayor of New York, and he talked about how when he took the job, he created a leadership course for himself with books, and also by inviting great leaders to talk to him, begging them, asking them, you know, please talk to me about it. And the call with Keely caused me to listen to an audiobook. And since then, since that time, I have spent half an hour to an hour and a half a day listening to audiobooks, which I never did before. And I have heard many books on leadership, and every day, my skill gets greater. And this is exactly what you do with this page on, you know, of your lessons. That every day that you use this, your skill will get greater because you will become more functional. That's what's happening to you. You're becoming functional. And as you become functional, you will become more capable of leading humanity out of the, you know, the impending doom that we are all trapped in, as the world, is becoming destroyed at a faster rate every day, and you'll be able to play your role and accomplish your mission, which God sent you here to do. And now that I've told you that story, I feel like telling you a couple of other stories, because what we're talking about here is a very important skill, isn't it? The ability to find things, So I have a story to tell you that's actually two stories, or maybe several stories. In 1995, when I had fully converted over to doing this with people, I was still doing it with, not on the internet anymore, but I was doing curing. And it wasn't actually really curing then. It was really sort of like spiritual curing. Now we do physical curing, and that leads to spiritual curing. It's just easier to get people involved when they do when they do physical curing. They really need that, And a lot of them would never think about doing spiritual curing, but it happens. The minute you ever got a signal, the first second that you got a signal, you were curing yourself spiritually and emotionally, too, by the way. When you go to the Calm Clear Place, you're losing your depression, your anxiety, your negative emotions, whatever, You're just getting better, generally. Okay. So anyway, in 1995, I was doing this, and I went to live with a couple of friends of ours who he was a doctor of Oriental medicine in California, and his wife. And they were doing this. They were teaching, in like an earlier form. They didn't teach people how to cure things, but, they taught whatever we were teaching back then. And he did his practice, too, I guess, no, wait a minute. Maybe he was in acupuncture school. That may have been what it was. But, he had the books and the herbs and everything, and he was doing the stuff on himself and so on, and, curing things. And I had two problems when I got there. And one of them was on this toe right here. Do you see this foot? It's a congenital birth defect. I had a planter's wart right there on that toe. Now that you saw my big, ugly toe. And I was wearing sandals all the time because anything that touched that thing, it was so painful. Planter's warts go down to the bone. And I also had some kind of an ear infection that caused my ear to itch, and it was just driving me up the wall. And I said, I got to cure this, and I tested that I could cure it with Chinese herbs. And so I was walking back from the beach. They lived in Paradise Cove in Malibu. Beautiful place. We were up on a hill. And so I used to take a really long walk on the beach every morning. And if you don't want to hear this story and you just want to, go cure something, fine. But I think you really ought to hear. You might pick something up from these stories, So you ought to listen to this, probably. So go test for a lesson and start doing it, and then come back. You can do the lesson while you listen if you want. It's okay. Anyway, I come back from my walk, and he was walking out of the house to go somewhere, and I said, wait. I got this ear thing. I tested we could use herbs. Get the book.